just having the courage to put yourself out there and try different things, meet new people, build relationships, talking presentations, talking meetings, have conversations like this. So courage and resilience, two powerful words when you put them together. Simple but powerful. And if you can adhere to that, and there are a lot of words to adhere to, but that's a great start. Courage and resilience for sure. But thanks again, bro, for allowing me to.
Yeah. I lay on the scare, you gotta glow. You gotta glow. She had my attention, she gotta know.
I'd like to welcome everyone to another episode of the Let's Get That podcast. I'm your host Zeke, and in this episode, I have my friend Drew to speak about adjusting to adulthood and post-college life. You can listen to this podcast on all major platforms, including YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts, by clicking the link in the description below or going to allmylinks.com/Let's Get a Pod. Please rate it 5 stars. I'd like to give a content warning for any strong language used in this episode, and hope you have a nice day and enjoy the show. Welcome to the podcast. Thank you for coming.
What's up, man? How you feeling?
Feeling good. Last one for season 3, then season 3 starts next week.
Oh, I'm the last one of season 3?
Yeah.
Damn, I gotta hold up. Let me start all over again. No, I'm honored, man. Thank you for the opportunity for sure to just link up and chop it up.
We haven't seen each other a couple of minutes in a while, a little bit. Been a bit.
Yeah, this is the new normal, man. Like I can't even dap you up. I gotta virtually dap you up.
So to get started, the first question I would like to ask is, what would your origin story be, and how would you represent it?
For sure. It's kind of hard to pinpoint what age exactly my story began. So I'll say I'll change the question a little bit if that's okay.
Yeah.
Maybe we could change the rules a little bit. Last episode, season 3. And I'll talk a little bit maybe about like when I realized, like who I was or like what I was searching for in this life. I would say probably about like sophomore year of college is when I started to, figure out who I am and really understand what my goals were. And the reason why it was sophomore year of college is because prior to that, I feel like I was kind of just like floating around, right? Like trying to be funny in classes and not really taking school too seriously and, just getting into different things that kids do, right? Like being a bad kid. But it wasn't until sophomore year of college. And even with the whole college process, I kind of just did it because my sisters weren't in school. And it just felt like something right to do at the time because the alternative, which is not go to school, felt like a very foreign idea to me at the time. And so thankfully I got the call from Christy Perez. You're very familiar with who Christy Perez is, but for those listening, Christy Perez is the former director of the Urban Male Leadership Academy, and that's essentially a program. It's an opportunity program that helps to increase the retention rates of Black and brown men in college, right? Financially, educationally, all things, you name it, brotherhood, right? Because I started with a cohort in 2013 and got the call from Christy. And even that first year, it was like I was 1 foot in, 1 foot out, right? Like I knew I always wanted to elevate and do better for myself, but I just wasn't sure how that was going to be defined. Sophomore year of college, though, I think through just like surrounding myself with like-minded individuals, we came across what is called corporate America, and we had a year to kind of polish ourselves and get ourselves ready to get into that grind. Because reason why I say a year is because a lot of, or I should say, the traditional route into corporate America is that you secure a junior internship so that at the end of the summer you can go full time. And so that became our objective. And by our, I mean the folks that I had surrounded myself with at the time at Brook. And so, we joined some programs in addition to UMLA. We were also in management leadership for tomorrow, which is not a Baruch specific program, but it is a professional development for sophomores across the states. And through that and just different, different opportunities often on campus, was able to, get polished, secure an internship in tech at Google, which proved to be a really fruitful opportunity. And at the end of the summer, they asked me to come back. And so I graduated in 2017, and in January of 2018 started working for Google. So I've been there for about 2 years and 7 months, just about 2 years and 8 months. January of 2021 will be the 3-year anniversary. So to answer your question, more specifically, I think that's when I kind of, figured out what I wanted to do and what my grind, what my hustle was going to be. Sophomore year of college. Funny enough, I think I'm redefining that origin, as you put it, right now, though, because, I've been in this space for about, like I said, almost 3 years, and the role is super technical, which, me, that's completely opposite of who I am, right? I'm very extroverted, I'm very personable, and so, I'm looking to transition into a more people-oriented space, specifically doing work similar to UMLA, funny enough, right? So it's I think it'll be nice to see things come back full circle, right? Where I'm directly helping people of color or not of color. We don't discriminate. Just like, figure out what their origin is or figure out what their grind is. And if they know their grind, how do they polish themselves so that they can continue to elevate and get into the spaces that make sense for them. So that's what I'm working on right now, preferably still in the tech space, because I think that's where the world is continuing to move. So, and I enjoy being in tech. It's just that I'm not necessarily in love with the role, but definitely still kind of in that tech space. So that was a long-winded way of answering your question about, where's my origin and where did things kind of start for me. I would definitely say sophomore year of college. And by the way, that's the professional side. I'm happy to also answer the origin of my more personal side and, personal interest.
You can kick into that if you want to. And then how would you, for the professional side, how would you represent it? You write a book, write a screenplay?
I like the idea of a play. A play could be cool because it's more interactive, and people have short attention spans nowadays, myself included. So I feel so a book or a movie might not be as interesting, but maybe a play, because it's live. People are kind of, you're engaging with the audience outside. Yeah, I think I like the idea of a play. Also, a podcast could be cool, right? Podcasts can be cool too. But I mean, that's definitely something to keep in mind, right? Like, how do we tell our stories? Because everybody has a story to tell, and all stories definitely like worth listening to for sure.
Yeah. You said a lot of stuff in your origin as well, like stuff when that's when you wanted to like make that corporate change and everything, and more of like you want to become more serious.
Yeah, that's when I wanted to become more serious about school. I was like I wasn't just there to be there, and I understood like why I was there because all of freshman year I was waking up, commuting from Brooklyn to Baruch, and it I honestly just was in autopilot, to be honest. Like I knew that I had to go to class. I knew that I had to do assignments, otherwise I would get a failing grade. But there was no like North Star. There was nothing guiding me. Um, Sophomore year though, like I said, is when I started to very clearly define where it is what it is I'm pursuing, where I'm trying to go. And then from there I was able to kind of like create this plan, um, using my own blueprint, but then blueprint of those who, were in situations similar to me. Because there's a lot of people who are trying to secure junior internships as well, especially as when I stepped into the MLT community, because that's like 300 plus people across universities in the United States. And so you're surrounded by a lot of Black and brown talent. And so you can be like, okay, cool. Like, this is what you're doing. This is what I should be doing. They share a lot of resources and things like that. So that was really helpful for sure.
Yeah. Everybody in C talks about MLT and AMI and all that stuff.
Yeah, I think those programs are necessary for sure, especially because a lot of people in Sikh, I can't say Baruch, but a lot of people in Sikh, you come from humble beginnings and you're not necessarily exposed to these different career opportunities. And even if you don't want to go into corporate America, there's still a lot of value that programs like MLT offer, right? Which is just sharpening yourself, your story, who you are. Like those skills you can take to any industry you want to work in. And in fact, if you can come at it from the corporate lens, I feel like that's even more helpful because there's politics in wherever you go. If you want to do a podcast, if you want to be a photographer, if you want to, you need those communication skills. You need to know how to navigate difficult conversations, and which is a lot of what corporate teaches you. So yeah, ANY, MLT, definitely whoever's in college. Um, I think it's a good idea to look into these things. And sometimes it could feel overwhelming. Just know that too, right? Sometimes it could feel overwhelming when you're not as clear on what you want to do, and everyone's kind of sure of what they want. But two things is just not to compare yourself to other people, and the other thing is just giving yourself credit for at least like applying and being in those spaces, in those environments, because you will. You will without a doubt just soak up information by just being there. A lot of times we go into spaces, and this is what I've experienced, and you have this like really high expectation of what you need to get out of, or what you need to be doing in those spaces, right? Well, I need to do this, I need to do that, I need to do, but it's like, how about we just, erase all those expectations and say, I just need to be there. I just need to wake up and like actually go to class. I need to wake up and actually just be in that environment. And then once you write that as the expectation, and everything else is a plus, there's less pressure about, what it is that your objectives are. Now it's good to, have a plan and have goals, but sometimes when you do too much of that, especially if that thing itself, like MLT or SEO, ANY, especially if those environments themselves are a little overwhelming to you, then you're just pretty much setting yourself up for failure. Um, but we can have a whole conversation about that. I don't want to harp too much on that.
Yeah. And then I guess the same with college a little longer. I have a funny story about Christy. There was one time I was working for the woman office right next door to Zeke.
Yeah.
And then I was using a copy machine with somebody else. And then Christy was like, "Why are you using a copy machine?" I got so scared. I was like, "Oh no!" So I just like, well, because I was working for them. They told me to use a copy machine. Christy
Yeah.
thought I was working for Zeke and using their copy machine.
Okay.
Like a whole minute, I was like, I didn't speak. I was like, huh?
Yeah.
That was funny.
That's funny. Christy definitely she's definitely like, you know, she'll go down as a household name for sure. Given the work that she was doing in the D&I space.
And what was your major? Did you change your major in college?
No. So that's another. Now that we talk about majors, I hope it's okay to kind of talk through my decision making for that.
Yeah.
I remember coming into Baruch and everyone was on the finance grind, right? I had people tell me that it didn't make sense to come to Baruch and not major in finance. And remember, I said first year, I didn't even know like why I was really in school. Like I was there because my sisters, both of my sisters graduated from college. So it just felt, and I use this term loosely, but it just felt idiotic to me to not be in college. Not to say that people who decide to not go to school, you get what I'm saying?
Yeah. It's like
I'm saying for me,
whatever works for you is the best option.
Right. That was the best. That seemed like the best option for me at the time. But reason why I say that is because as somebody who's unsure of their major, or excuse me, as somebody who's unsure of whether or not they should even be there, declaring a major just feels like added responsibility. Going back to what I was saying about being in the MLT spaces and things like that, right? Like that's already overwhelming. So then now that you're there, you're like, oh, I need to be doing this. I need to be doing that. I need to be doing. So that's kind of how I felt like when it came to deciding my major. And then you add the layer of people saying that you need to do finance. And I was like, wait, what? Like, that's not what I want to do. Right. And so it's one of those moments where you kind of have to listen to your gut, and just do what you feel like is the right thing to do. That's such a cliche, but I think it is true, and it ends up working well every time. And I'm not suggesting that you completely dismiss suggestions that people are offering, or I'm not suggesting that you stay closed off to perspectives that people share. But at the end of the day, a perspective is just based on that person's like viewpoint, right? And like the right answer is whatever feels correct to you. So have that conversation with someone, talk through, why it is that they decided to make that decision, but then ultimately pick what is best for you. And that applies to majors, that applies to any big decision that you have to make, right? Like I remember when I had to sell my car, right? Like that was a big decision that I had to make because I'm somebody that loves driving. And so I'm thinking through, like, everybody's giving me all these perspectives. Like, yes, sell it. No, don't sell it. Like, keep it. You already invested. You did. And at some point, all of that becomes noise, right? But it's good noise to have. Ultimately, you have to sit down with yourself and say, okay, cool. I heard all the noise. Let me listen to my own noise and then pick what is best for me. And so the harm in not doing that is if you only have your perspective, then the decisions that you can make will eventually be limited as things start to get a little bit more complex in life. So it's definitely, like I said, it's definitely important to gather information from others, but at the end of the day, you have to make decisions for yourself. Back to the major though. Yeah, I did corporate communications in English, and that's kind of what I wanted to do, like, since I came in. Corporate communications, just because I felt like that was something that I would be good at naturally. And then English was a way to force myself to, I thought it paired really well with corporate communication. That's first of all. But then second of all, I figured it would be a good way to push me to read literature more and like think critically, excuse me, and have conversation and have debates, right? Because that was something that I was looking to do. Um, Once I became more clear on like what I wanted out of the Baruch experience, just elevating my mind and I didn't feel confident in myself at the time that I would be picking up books and just reading them, because prior to that, to be honest, I had never read a book. I don't think. Like whenever I got assignments in high school, I was just like, my default was to go to Spark Notes and try to figure out like how to cut corners. Like that's who I was, right? Just cutting corners and trying to have fun. Cutting corners, being spontaneous, trying to have fun. And it was weird because I always wanted to like get better and elevate in life, but for when it came to education, I was like, looking back, I was definitely cutting corners. And not cutting corners to the point where it was like I'm a C or D student. I was still like competent, right? I was still kind of intelligent. But school can get tough at times, and it'll require discipline and um, you know, uh, late nights where you have to study and things like that. And if you're not used to doing that from a young age, and if you haven't that um, built that foundation, then it becomes difficult to do that like in high school, right? So yeah, corporate communications in English, and that ended up working really well for me, specifically because at Google, they don't look at majors too much. It's more just about what you bring to the table, your intellect, how well you do in interviews. I know that's not traditionally what happens, and there's generally more of a correlation between your major and where you end up employed. But I think that's like with a lot of things. I, I think that will change, or it's continuing. I should say it started to change over the last couple of years, specifically at Google. And I would imagine that like a lot of other companies will do that too, as they get insights that like, hey, unless you're doing something very like technical,
Medical.
yeah, like you might not actually need. In fact, maybe it's better to get somebody, with a history background in a tech space, because they can just like see things from a different lens. So there will still, of course, exist a very cut and dry, like you majored in finance, so now you're going to work in finance. But the world's changing. So when it comes to like choosing majors and stuff, I would definitely say don't put too much stress on that, right? Pick something that is gonna work for you. Try to look at like the recommendations or the requirements for that major, and see if it's something that that you will be happy doing. And then I would say whatever your major doesn't offer, supplement that with internship experiences, experiences on campus. Whether that's like through different clubs, holding leadership positions, things like that, right? Like you want to focus more on having that full package instead of just, choosing the major that you think is going to get you the job that you need. Again, unless you're super crystal clear that this is the company that you want to work at and this is the exact position that you want to be in, I really don't think that the major is as important as like people think it is.
Yeah. But like I said in multiple episodes, seen my major twice. Had 3 majors in 4 years.
Three majors in 4 years?
Yeah.
Wow. And you managed to finish in 4?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. That's very impressive. Let's talk about how you did that.
Because
4 years. Damn, I know people that like switch their major so they would have two majors during the time at Baruch, and it's almost like you get in another degree, like you got to start all over again, basically.
It was just how I planned, like unplanned to plan things. Because when I was going to high school, it was like I don't know what I want to do in life. So out of my college picked my major, so it was like
Yeah.
accounting, and then it was like engineering stuff. So I'm good like math and science.
Okay.
So then I got to Baruch. I was like, okay, so let me try accounting. That was boring, and my mom kept telling me to not do it. Subtly, she was like, "Are you sure you want to be an accountant?" Because she went to college for accounting. I was like, if she can do it, I can do it.
Got
So
it.
then sophomore year, I declared CIS.
Okay.
So I was like, I'm already in Baruch. I'm not going to transfer to another school to do engineering. Let me just do CIS.
Yeah.
But since I didn't know how to code at the time, and it was very new, once I got into the major class junior year, I only scheduled one major class and a bunch of other designated classes, the regular business classes. So when I got to the major class, I got a 0 in the midterm.
Oh my! I'm sorry to laugh.
No, I'll laugh too.
You may listen to everybody listening. It's okay to laugh now because he graduated. I'm not laughing at pain that you're currently in right now. This has to make you. So you got a 0 on the midterm.
Yeah. It was a 5-question programming thing. So we had like programming stuff. So you had like each question. So you had the input. And you had to get out that right, type out the export, the output.
Yeah.
And I got everything wrong. And I kind of always had like back in my mind to change my major anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, am I really enjoying this? And I spoke to one of the professors. He was like, you have more reaction when you talk about animation compared to CIS, like tech.
Mm-hmm.
So that was in mind. So I was like, and I was also having a problem with the homework. And then the practice test was harder than the homework. And then the test is harder than the practice test.
Yeah.
So in my mind, I went to Andrew. I was like, because here's my plan. If I do well in this test, I'll stay in CIS. If I do okay, I'll switch to the other CIS so I'll do more programming. And if I do terrible, I just switch to marketing. And then I switched to marketing. I dropped the class. All I do is take one summer class over just to like make it up.
Yeah.
And then the next semester I did all marketing, just
all marketing classes, and then you were able to finish.
Yeah, because I was taking the 3,000 level marketing anyway.
Mm.
So then I was able to take the next marketing classes.
That's dope, man. That's very impressive, and kudos to you for kind of navigating that, because anything that we have to do where there hasn't been too many people that has done it before us, it could be a difficult path to navigate because you're not really sure like what the right answer is, right? So, you know, coming to college, I mean, I guess there are people who change their majors quite a couple times, but I think for you specifically, like to come in 3 different majors and still finish in 4 years, because there are people who change their majors, but that like extends how long they're in college. So I'm speaking specifically to exactly what you did, 3 majors in 4 years. I feel like I haven't heard too many people that have done that. So shout out to you definitely for having a game plan and sticking with it and being able to finish in 4 years. That's definitely impressive. One thing you said that kind of stuck out to me was the professor saying like, "Hey, you seem to enjoy animation more than you do like the more technical stuff," and that kind of I think goes back to what we were saying about choosing majors, and doing something that you're actually happy with. When it comes to choosing majors, I would definitely say, I should say what you just said is an example, or is a testament to what I was saying earlier, right? About doing something that you actually enjoy, because the 4 years that you have in college is when there's pretty much like endless opportunities, right? You have access to like the different everything's just like easier accessible, right? And then whatever, like let's say you do end up doing animation, but then you have this goal of graduating and living XYZ lifestyle if what you're doing doesn't like won't necessarily translate, because you want to be mindful of that too, right? Like for example, I did public relations, and I was looking at I did a public relations internship before going to Google, right? And I was looking at like the PR lifestyle, right? So salary, like just all things PR, and there was like a disconnect between what I wanted and like um and what the lifestyle looked like it was gonna be, right? So I had to kind of like shift gears a little bit and figure out, all right, cool, like how do I still do something that I may enjoy, but and it will provide me with the lifestyle that I want, you know? So when it comes to definitely when it comes to like picking majors, do something that you're happy with doing. And then when you do your research to see like if that lifestyle will match, if it doesn't, the two options are like changing majors or what I was saying a little bit earlier, supplementing it, right? With different opportunities that will make your package a lot stronger. So, you know, if you have that those marketing opportunities, like any opportunity on campus where you're able to build skills, that will make you more marketable to employers that can offer the type of lifestyle that you ultimately want to live. So I think that's a good like process to follow, right? Coming in, like choosing a major that makes you happy, that you can kind of see yourself doing for the 4 years, then taking a look at, okay, cool, what happens after this major? Like when I graduate, what am I going to be able to do? Because I feel like that's a hurdle that people have to overcome too. You graduate, you didn't take a look at the lifestyle that you wanted and the lifestyle that whatever you're majoring in provides. And then now you're kind of like in this, maze where you're trying to find your way to an employer that offers the lifestyle that you want. So that would be kind of like the 3-step process. But that is dope though that you were able to, still graduate in that 4 years, and make and things were like still possible for you.
Yeah, I was just lucky that how I scheduled it. I was like, all right, cool. Look at the classes. I was like, all right, to take these, and then I could take those, and then boom. So it was about one few times I had to plan something. I was like, all right, cool. This can make sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's cool, man. It's definitely cool. When did you graduate again?
2019.
Oh, yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah.
2019. Yeah, it's just like at Baruch, everybody is like the same year until they leave. I forgot like what year you actually were. So you came in 2015 then.
Yep.
Okay, cool. That's dope.
Talking the most trash freshman year, then I got tired.
You said what?
Talking the most trash freshman year, then after that, just getting tired from school and just like, I'm lost it.
That's funny. But yeah, how is the? I feel like I've been doing a lot of the talking. So just to flip the script, like how is, or maybe like what's your origin? Like, let's discuss that part of it. I mean, you can give a shortened version of that, or I don't know if I'm flipping the script too much.
No, you could ask me questions. It's a conversation.
Yeah. So what's
Mhm.
kind of your origin?
For me, I would say similar to you, like going to school. I was going to school autopilot. I just like do well because my mom was on my back, like do well in school.
Mm-hmm.
She's more like at least you try. As long as you try and do well, then you're good. Except that one time when I got 75 in calculus in high school, and she got mad. But my
Yeah.
teacher gave me the 75 to humble me
Mm.
because I was like he didn't want me to get two because I was like one of the best students, even though I kept failing all the tests. But I was like failing close to 65. It was like when you kind of fell high.
Yeah.
And then because she was like, "This is math. This is your thing. You're supposed to be good at it." If it's English, I understand
Mm-hmm.
because that's like my weakness. But
Mm-hmm.
like, and then cons, I'm not more like it wasn't academically wasn't hard. It was more like outside stuff happened.
Sure.
Where like junior year my great grandmother died, then senior year my grandmother died, and then having those two
Yeah,
like back to back years.
that's tough. I'm sorry to hear that. Yeah, that's tough.
So it's more of like that's why I'm just like now I took like the year after college kind of took the year off, like
Mm,
kind of quote unquote like I was still working, but like I was just like all right, I need to take a breather because
mm.
it's more like autopilot, like go to school, go to work
Yeah,
or volunteer. I've been doing like all three since I was like 14.
yeah, like just recharging a little
Yeah,
bit, getting your mind right, because that's the important thing. Like if you don't protect the mental, then everything could come crashing down. Definitely, for
and
sure.
then say like senior year, say like junior year, when I changed the major, I was like cool. I had a plan, and I was doing graphics here and there.
Hmm.
And I went to a conference last week, and they said and it was free to like art director and stuff like that. I have like talent. I'm talented. I have like the skills to you know, break in. So it was a good confidence boost.
Got you. Okay, that makes sense. And how would you broadcast it? Like book,
For me,
podcast?
definitely be it has to be like a series.
Oh, series. Damn, that was a good idea. I should have.
You know, one time somebody said video games for theirs. I'd say mine would have to be like a series because a lot of stuff happened, like bullying, all that stuff, and you just have to like mentally get prepared, like mentally get stronger, and then over the time I had to learn how to make do what I have, like using my resources and just figured it out.
Hmm.
Even with the podcast, I was doing it in person. I have a place to like do it. So I go to Brook, have my friends get a study room, and then we're doing the study room with the camera, and then my phone's the camera. I
Hmm.
bought some stands, and I had a recorder my mom bought me.
Yeah,
It was more of like this, wherever events that you have, just do it like that.
yeah,
So like each episode will be like a challenge to the character to go through, and then
right,
see how they figure it out.
yeah. Like just being scrappy,
Yeah,
which is another important skill that people have to have. Yeah, that's great. And then I bet it's super fulfilling after the fact to see like the progress, um, or like see the results of the hard work, like everything that you're doing. Once you get to a place where it's like, oh man, you know, I'm enjoying the fruits of my labor now. Um, or at least things are starting to shift in the direction that you wanted to.
yeah. People started like I had like 600 interviews at this current moment. I think I'm on pace to get like 1,000
600,
in total. So like
600 interview,
680 views, like
600.
downloads, 680
Oh,
downloads.
oh, okay. I thought you said interview.
No, whoa, that's
I was like, bro.
that's a lot right there. I ain't got that kind of pace. I ain't got that.
I was like, man, give me whatever juice you drinking. If you did 680 interviews, wow, that's good though. That's
I think
great.
I'm on pace to like 1,000 this year if all goes well.
Yeah, that's a good goal to set too. You gotta start somewhere. Pretty cool. Anything else that you want to pick my brain about?
So I guess we could go into more. You said like the personal origin story, and like how
Yeah,
you.
personal origin. Um, so I would say that started when I was in Michigan, actually. Uh, January. So when I started working at Google in January of 2018, um, the conditions of the role um, required me to go to Michigan and start out there. And that was a decision that I sat on for a while, mainly because I knew nothing about Michigan. I barely heard about Detroit because of just rappers and stuff like that. You know what I mean? So it was a very foreign territory to me, and then just going out there with no family or anything like that. So I was like hesitant to do it. But I just accepted the challenge ultimately after months and months of just like getting perspectives from other people and listening to the noise. Decided that I was gonna go and eventually come back. I think the scary part though is that I wasn't sure like when I would actually come back. Um, and it wasn't until I went out there where I put myself in a very uncomfortable state, almost to a fault, because it was like, you know, I mean, we can go into the specifics. We can have a whole conversation about, you know, how I would redo that experience. But at the time, I was unaware of a lot. But I'll just say that, you know, I put myself in an uncomfortable position, and from that came a lot of growth. To, you know, learn more about who I was, interests, and like, those are still questions that I'm answering right now. But you know, if we look at it as a percentage, right? So how well do you know yourself? Well, you know yourself 50% well. You have that 50% foundation either through doing things as a kid and figuring out, hey, this is what I genuinely enjoy, or just putting yourself out there and then, you know, understanding, you know, how you react to certain situations. So prior to Michigan, I would say I thought I knew myself fairly well, and then I was in an environment where it was super foreign to me, and that's where I really started to learn about my interests. That's where I discovered like audiobooks, podcasts, um, continued my interest in like fitness and nutrition, and you know, like I said, started getting into like more reading and YouTube, things like that, and just like the self development, the growth, which are things that like I already knew that I wanted for myself. Clearly, that's why I moved to Michigan to start the role at Google. But you know, development and growth, it can be defined differently at every phase of your life, right? Um, and even more different when you're in spaces that you have no idea, or you've never been there and they're completely new to you. So through that, you know, I was out there for about a year and a half, and through that, like I said, just learned a lot. I think the moral there is to just, you know, put yourself out there, try something different, similar to what you said about the podcast. Like sometimes you don't always know how something is gonna work. Make sure you had. So going back to what I said earlier about what I would do different, just make sure you have kind of like the established community and layers of support, so you can have something to fall back on. um, but you know, still indeed like put yourself out there, do something uncomfortable, and it's going to require sacrifices, it's going to require discipline, it's going to require or not require, but it'll people will not understand why you're doing it. um, and if you talk to them and they're still not seeing eye to eye with you, then maybe that's like an indication that, you know, the dynamic of your relationship with that person should change, especially if you feel like it's best for you at the time. But yeah, and then from those uncomfortable experiences comes like the growth, and I saw it, and I'm continuing to see it when I, you know, as I came back to New York, and as I continue to kind of go down this path as an adult, right? Just all the learnings from being around the smartest people, um, and just, you know, like I said, being in a completely different world than I was used to, as an adult. So personally, I think it started with my fitness journey while I was at Baruch. Like sophomore year, I went through like a pretty big fitness journey, I would say. Um, Cut about like 75 pounds or so. So it started there on the personal side for me, but it really, you know, the meat and potatoes of it was when I moved to Michigan for sure. Because like I said, it was a huge learning curve, both in the role, but then just being out there on my own.
And navigating all that, like, so like, how did you like? Did you meet people like that you could connect with in Michigan, or did you like connect with people back in New York? Just trying to figure out like how to navigate.
Initially, it was an interesting experience because I met people at work, right? But at Baruch, and just my idea of corporate America in general, I had this false belief that, your work friends are only your work friends, and you don't mix like work with personal. So I went over there operating in that way. And what that did over time was it built a lot of, just, I wouldn't say superficial, but just work relationships, which was cool because, yeah, sure, there were people that I could like sit down and have lunch with. But once I left work, because I set the tone as like a work relationship, um, that meant that like afterward, it wasn't in our, you know, what's the right word? Like we didn't really, it wasn't part of the relationship for us to be like constantly hanging out. And so, and I think like in the climate that I was in, so it's important to like understand your environment. um, Google promotes like the mix of work and personal. But I was in denial at the time because I'm like, wait, they just told me over 4 years, like corporate, suit and tie, like this is, and I think in some cities like New York, that might be effective because generally speaking, well, not generally speaking, but like let's say you went to school in New York, like we did, you probably already have like a community, and you don't necessarily like need to hang out with all these people from work. But in my situation, I didn't have a community. I didn't know anybody out there, so the only people that I could interact with were people from work. And so that, because, like I said, because of my approach to it, it led to having no community, or at least like no in-person community. And my community became just like the group chat. I had started this group chat with me and a couple of other friends from college, from Baruch. And we had all graduated, and we were working, at different companies, all in corporate America for the most part. And then, from there, we kind of just like supported each other, through the highs and lows of corporate America. And if it wasn't for them, I probably would have moved back sooner because I already knew I wanted to move back. But yeah, if it wasn't for that community, I definitely would have moved back sooner. To answer your question, though, no, I didn't. I don't think I met like too many people out there, and that had to do with why like I wanted to move back so soon, because I felt like it was starting to wreck my personal life. Um, and I began asking myself, like, why am I still out here? And I was just, I think, just homesick at that point. And so I wanted to come back and um, get reacquainted with the city and people out here, and back with what I was familiar with in New York City. And I've been back for a little over a year. So I came back in May 2019. So a year and a couple months. And I would say the first year was still a transition because, again, expectations. It like you see the meme expectations versus reality.
Yeah.
My expectation was it was going to be like another version of Baruch, but um, although it was better than what I had experienced in Michigan, everybody was kind of doing their own thing. People are adults now, people work. So, hanging out in between classes and all the social aspects of Baruch are not necessarily the same thing as an adult. And you can be social, and I was social because I knew people in the city and stuff, but it just looks different. Like when you graduate college, you'll go to like bars, whatever the case may be, some kickbacks, but it's not like just randomly like, wasting a lot of time and just hanging out and just like chilling, all the time. But I feel like that's part of the college experience, whereas as an adult, it looks a little bit different.
Yeah, we all trying to adjust to this new adult phase of our lives.
Yeah, exactly. So to anybody who's listening to this in college right now, like, definitely take advantage. Well, I know it's a weird time. You can't really be on campus, but if there are opportunities like virtual or not, definitely jump on that because it becomes a little bit tougher to navigate or like less accessible to navigate once you graduate, especially if you're still kind of like in that exploring phase where you want to try all these different things. If you know what you want, then yeah, let's say you want a box for sure. That's all you want to do. Then yeah, once you graduate, you become more financially stable, and then you can just sign up for a boxing class. But if you're kind of exploring, you want to, like for me, I wanted to like do a fashion show, do all these different things, and do photography, do modeling, right? Those are all things that I think would have been a little bit easier to do in college when you don't have a job, right? Or I mean, even if you do have a job, it's a little bit different than like a full time offer. That was my experience. It could be different for other people. But yeah, that was kind of like the personal side. And then since I know you said series, but I'm gonna steal your answer anyway, and I'll say I definitely would represent that in a series though. I feel like a series is best suited for this, just because it's been so many different parts, from the fitness to, or I should say, like from early stages of not really doing well in school to going to school and not reading at the level that I should be reading at, to the fitness, to the polishing so that I can secure the internship, to getting the internship, to moving out there for the summer. And that's another story within of itself. Then going out there full time and then getting adjusted to New York. Like it's a lot of different phases, and you can't give all that out in one episode. So I think for that, like a series would be most effective for sure.
Cool.
I
How we have.
appreciate the conversation though, bro. This is dope to be able to just like chop it up, kind of get into the more in depth, of our experiences, um, professionally and personally.
And yeah, it's always fun because everybody said they have fun. I guess 'cause, like a lot of times we don't get to talk, or if we do talk, it's usually in the moment.
Yeah, yeah. It's usually in the moment, and you never like sit down. Or I should say, you have to be more intentional about sitting down and just being like, yo, like, what is your experience? And a lot of times, and to be honest, in college, we wouldn't have even been able to have this type of conversation because we were still writing the story. Like, I couldn't have told you that I was about to move out here and, what I'm saying, come back to the city and go through all these different things. So the timing just feels right and feels like a very productive convo. So again, appreciate the opportunity, bro, to just come on and chop it up and, um, you know, talk through what we've been up to for the last couple of years.
You about to leave? You gotta go soon?
Say that again.
No, how much time you got left? You gotta go soon? Or are you just saying thing?
No, I mean, I'm good for like the next couple minutes.
Okay. It's
Yeah.
just funny how we have like two different college experiences. Where you had like the more traditional college experience, like, okay, this is what I'm gonna do, and this is how we're gonna end. And it's gonna end up the way
Yeah.
you want. And me, I'm just like, okay, so what's next? And then just whoever is thrown at me, just adapting to it.
Oh, you would say that's what your experience was?
Yeah.
Okay. So it's not, correct me if I'm wrong, but that sounds like less of like the long-term plan and it's more of like short-term.
Yeah, I do a lot of short term.
Okay. Got you.
I do a
Yeah.
lot.
I mean, I don't think that's unique to you. I feel like that's a lot of people. They kind of just like go with the flow. Um, I operate under a new philosophy of balance. Sounds simple, but it helps me with a lot of decision making, um, that I'm faced with nowadays. And I think, you know, balance is like the key to everything. So in college, like if I could do it over, it would have been a little bit of the planning long term and and a little bit of the spontaneity. Although I feel like I did have some spontaneity, but I feel like that's probably the thing is when you have the planning, then life after college might be like an easier transition. I'm just assuming. But if you focus too much on the planning and the GPA and all that kind of stuff, then like while you're there, the 4 years is not, maybe it's not as fulfilling. And when you graduate, you lose a lot of access to some of the things that I was speaking about, right? Like the clubs on campus and all that, especially at Baruch, where there's so many different languages spoken on campus and just so many different clubs, so many opportunities. You could create your own club, radio show. I was a part of a radio show, which was really cool. So that was like before Let's Gather podcast. But yeah, it's like a hip hop radio show, which was pretty dope.
Yeah, I did a tech internship at John Jay. I was in FEMCO, Female Technology Club, LASSO, Latin American Student Organization, NABA, National Association of Black Accountants, School
Okay.
at Acetone. Then I did a internship at CAN for 3 months.
Okay.
Did a lot of like working with youth. Like
Yeah.
my strength is all over the place.
Yeah, that's dope though. Yo, every my philosophy or my other philosophy, I operate under a lot of philosophy, excuse me. My other philosophy is all knowledge is good knowledge, all connections are good connections, because you never know how it's gonna like show up. So, you're doing this work with Lasso, which to some people might be like, wait, why are you doing that? And maybe just maybe at the time, like you're thinking, how will this be helpful? But it might, you never know. You know what I'm saying? Like it'll show up when it's supposed to show up.
Yeah. Life experiences. Life is funny. It writes his own self and you just like this makes no sense. And then you look back like, oh
Yeah,
that
right.
makes sense.
I'm still waiting for those aha moments for a lot of things that I did. I hope they come, and let's keep our fingers crossed. I hope they come.
So with the podcast, it's gonna be like it's like a 10-year plan. With the podcast, it's like 10-year investment.
Yeah,
Like constant work.
exactly.
I'm just like, it couldn't happen a little faster. I'm just like, I need to pay bills now. Everybody's like, people like this person got rich at like 43 or like 75. I'm just like, I'm cool. I can wait for that.
Yeah.
I just need money now so I can pay, so I can live long enough to get there.
Right. Yeah, you need that. You need that safety net, man, which is why corporate is good, because although there's a lot of politics and a lot of BS, it does offer that safety net. But you just got to find that balance of going back to balance of your mental state and the safety net. Assuming that's not what you want to do, but I just find that a lot of people our age may be in roles that like don't necessarily excite them the most. But similarly, there are people, or I should say, conversely, there are people who are in roles in corporate that they enjoy. So shout out to them for sure. But yeah, bro. Any final words before we before I have to head up in a little bit. Any final words?
No, just thanks for being a guest. And the last question: what would you name your origin story?
The personal one or the professional?
I'll give you one for each. Give you one for both.
For the personal one, I remember my manager asked, I don't know why this came up, why I just thought of this, but I remember my first manager ever asked me like, hey, what's a word to describe yourself? Which seems like trivial, but I think it really helps you understand like the individual that you're about to manage or collaborate with, right? And my response it took me a while to think about it, but my response to that was just resilience, right? And the explanation was like, I can almost guarantee you I'm not gonna get it right on the first time. But to me, resilience is really important because it's not about like getting it right on the first time. It's just about like, how you follow through after getting it wrong. In fact, there are a lot of benefits to getting it wrong on the first time. You spoke a little bit about that, about, when you started the podcast, you were in study rooms, right? And it took the resilience to get to where you're at right now. But if you had just kind of folded, then you wouldn't be we wouldn't even be having this conversation. For the personal story, I would say resilience, and for the professional story, trying to think about a word that kind of captures this idea of putting yourself out there and not being afraid to just like learn and grow. For the time being, yeah, I'm normally good at these word things too. But you said one word though, that's kind of what's throwing me off. Courage, right? Because just having the courage to put yourself out there and try different things, meet new people, build relationships, talking presentations, talking meetings, have conversations like this. So courage and resilience, two powerful words when you put them together. Simple but powerful. And if you can adhere to that, and there are a lot of words to adhere to, but that's a great start. Courage and resilience for sure. But thanks again, bro, for allowing me to speak and just offering the opportunity to, like I said, chop it up and talk a little bit more in depth. I wish you the best of luck moving forward with everything that you have going on, all the plans, both short term and long term. And, I'm hopeful that you will get rich before 43. Just remember us when things take off, Hopefully everybody that's been a part of this podcast can get like 0.01%, whatever it is that you end up obtaining. But no, jokes aside, definitely appreciate being the last person final episode of season 3.
End of
the year. Oh wow, damn. Yeah. I feel like we need like some cake or cheers. I'm drinking a Snapple right now.
Got some agua.
Oh, okay, cool. Staying hydrated. But yeah, thanks again for the opportunity, and let me know when you air this out so I can share it with a couple people and get the word out there.
No problem. Thank you for being a guest and wanting to be a guest in the first place.
Yeah, that's a no-brainer. I told you I'm extroverted, so I like to just talk.
You have 2 extroverts on the podcast.
Yeah.
Conversation.
Exactly. Yeah, man. Like I said, thanks again. I'm gonna head upstairs now and try to chef something else for the night. It's getting late on this side, but yeah, have a good rest of your night and let me know how everything goes.
All right, you too. See ya.
All right, cool.
That brings another episode of the Let's Get Podcast to a close. I would like to thank Drew for being a guest on the podcast. This is the last episode for season 3 in the year. You can listen to my next plans in the closing episode, which is premiering today. The Let's Get Podcast will come back in January 27th, 2021. I hope you continue to have a nice day, and I hope to see you there.